Well, why are we not surprised? First it was the dreaded mobile phone, and now it's Wi-Fi with new health fears for the internet generation. So should we really be worried? Well, if you believe the country's best brain surgeon and plenty of cancer researchers, radiation transmitted from Wi-Fi just might, be dangerous. Here's Maggie Palmer.
It's invisible and incredibly powerful. It allows us to be online all the time. Wi-Fi internet operates by emitting electromagnetic radiation, the same thing mobile phones release. Last year, a study found using a mobile could increase the risk of cancer. So, could Wi-Fi also be harming our health?
I personally feel like there is a relationship between the two, i.e. exposure to electromagnetic radiation and brain cancer.
Especially for our children, who are the heaviest users of a lot of technology. In effect, what they are is lab rats.
The concern is worldwide. Some schools in the UK and France have forbidden wireless internet after parents raised concerns. Acclaimed neurosurgeon Charlie Teo fears there's a connection between exposure to wireless technologies and illness.
There's this latency between exposure and the genesis of a brain tumour.
Don Mater's PhD looks at electromagnetic radiation and standards. He worries about the impact of long-term exposure.
And in relation to Wi-Fi, there is a body of science which says, for some people, this may be a health risk.
The start of a new school year, and for some parents in Collingwood, that means the worrying begins all over again. This is the site of a perplexing coincidence, or a disturbing connection. A school where a dozen students began to develop headaches, nausea, rashes, and racing hearts after the school went completely wireless. Jeremiah Churchley is one of those kids. We met him this past summer when school was out.
My heart beats really fast and my head starts hurting, and it bugs me a lot. And I get really thirsty.
All at the same time? So can you describe what it feels like when all this is happening to you?
I start feeling very nervous when it all starts happening, especially with my heart. I always think I'm going to die because it's beating so fast. I think I'm going to have a heart attack, but I don't.
Doctors put Jeremiah on a heart monitor for a few days, but couldn't figure out what was causing his heart to suddenly race. The symptoms would disappear when Jeremiah was home and start again at school. One day, his mother Betty was with him when he pulled out his laptop in the classroom.
And he grabbed my hand, he put my hand on his heart, and his heart was beating so fast, and it was hard. And you could actually see it beating through the sweater.
How do you know it's Wi-Fi?
That's a good question, and it's something that the school board and Health Canada needs to look into.
I've had him to the hospital. They don't know what's wrong with him. I keep mentioning, is it possible the Wi-Fi at the school, but a couple of doctors never even heard of it.
For months, Churchley has been looking for answers, and she's not alone.
I get a phone call that he's collapsed again. I just feel lost.
About 30 parents in this central Ontario area also believe their children got sick after Wi-Fi was installed in their schools.
Wi-Fi in schools is a bad idea.
On this night, they've invited a controversial professor from Trent University to speak to the community. Magda Havis is Canada's leading voice against Wi-Fi. She's researched radiation effects on health for nearly 20 years and says about 3% of the population is sensitive to radiation.
I think that the inventors of radar never dreamed that we would have the same frequencies inside classrooms exposing children to them.
Havis says Wi-Fi routers are like mini cell phone towers, and based on what some studies on cell phone tower exposure and cell phone use have found, she says Wi-Fi can be dangerous too.
The closest we can get are cell phones and cell phone towers, very similar frequencies, and we're finding it's making people sick.
Dr. Jennifer Armstrong specializes in environmental medicine.
The big thing with kids is they're more vulnerable.
Why?
Children are more vulnerable. Their skulls are thinner. Their bodies are not as strong as ours in general. They're developing, their brains are developing. So you expose children to radiation and their little bodies don't handle it as well.
And cardiologist Dr. Stephen Sinatra agrees.
as a parent, if I had a young child, would I want to use my child as an experiment to see if it's going to take 30 years or 20 years or 10 years they become sick? No, not me.
So are you suggesting that parents should tell their kids, a 13-year-old or 14-year-old who may be attached to his laptop or his iPad, you should stop using that?
It may not go over so well, but you know, when children want to smoke, and if you're a responsible parent, you allow your 13-year-old child to smoke. In my mind, there's no difference between the two. If anything, I think maybe microwave radiation is going to show up to be much more harmful than smoking, simply because of the amount of exposure that we're seeing in our everyday environment.
Dr. David Carpenter is a world-renowned expert in environmental toxins in Albany, New York, and he says the Canadian government is just plain wrong.
What we do is look at the weight of the evidence.
But that's what they said they did.
They didn't. The weight of the evidence demonstrates clearly that exposure to radiofrequency radiation, causes disease. The evidence is strongest for cancer.
So you're saying that their science is faulty, or their analysis of the science is faulty?
Their science is faulty, and certainly their analysis is faulty.
Why choose to ignore that? How does that possibly benefit them?
When you acknowledge you have a problem, and you're a government agency, you have to do something about it.
This is an Apple iPhone. Let's use our radio frequency meters to measure the microwave radiation coming off of this iPhone. It's averaging about 15,000 microwatts per square meter at a distance of approximately 1 to 2 inches.
Okay, the reason we're told not to hold the cell phone next to our head is because it's constantly emitting microwave radiation. And as you move it away, you can see the level goes down. If you live within a few hundred meters of these cell phone antennas, you are exposed to constant microwave radio frequency radiation. And this is 11,000 microwatts per meter squared. This is a Wi-Fi base station, and it sends information wirelessly to your computer. In the back, it's connected by Ethernet to your modem. It's going to connect wirelessly to your computer, your iPhone, and your iPad. And all of these devices communicate with each other using microwave radiation, and this is what we're concerned about. We can measure this microwave radiation on a scope looking at the waveform. This gives you the actual radiation level, and sometimes it goes so high we can't even read it. Here we can see it. Red is showing danger, yellow is caution, and green are the lower levels. And we can hear it. When the Wi-Fi base station transmitter is turned on, it is constantly sending out a beacon signal, 10 times per second. And this is the radiation we need to be worried about. The constant pulsing digital frequencies that are sent out by the base station, whether or not other devices are connected to them. And when we unplug the base station, the radiation stops. You are exposed to an even greater level of radiation generated by your Wi-Fi enabled device, such as an iPad, smartphone, or laptop computer when downloading and uploading information. The closer you are to these devices, the higher your exposure. Indeed, the microwave transmitter may be handheld, iPad, or smartphone. According to the studies by health authorities in Switzerland, holding a laptop or a smartphone or an iPad in your hand is comparable to placing a cell phone to your ear. Here we have the base stations for two cordless phones. This one is a 2.4 gigahertz digital phone, and this one is a newer model, a 6.0 DECT phone. Both of these phones emit microwave radiation as soon as you plug them into an electrical outlet. Let's hear what they sound like. And this is comparable to bringing cell phone towers into your home. The current cordless phone base station that are sold in North America are constantly emitting microwave radiation as long as they are connected to electricity. One of the most disturbing products is the wireless DECT baby monitor, whose base station emits a beacon signal all the time, just like a cordless phone. Imagine a cell tower placed a few feet away from your baby's crib, constantly broadcasting microwave radiation. Additionally, the receiving end is also constantly broadcasting radiation, and the receiver is usually clipped to a mother's waist, constantly irradiating her body. Medical authorities are telling us to limit our use of cell phones and not to have them in contact with our body. In this case, the baby monitor is in contact with the mother's body all day long and beside her bed all night long, constantly emitting microwave radiation. In Switzerland, the health authorities recommend that only sound-activated baby monitors be used. This limits the radiation to the infant, to the mother, and to others in the home. Why does Switzerland warn its citizens about the dangers of these devices? What do they know that we don't know or are not being told? Perhaps we should follow their lead.